Hey humans, welcome to a Perch of Birds Podcast. This is your host, the captain himself. Hello. Today you're going to hear an award-winning director who got a start as a background actor and his influences from some of the greatest movie directors of all time. Mr. Ryan Little joins us via Skype from Los Angeles, talking about the unique and intuitive ways he takes a budget and couples it with awesome actor talent to build stories that are both action-packed and dramatic. Ryan has received the Jimmy Stewart Memorial Award for his works, as well as an Emmy and multiple film festival awards. This guy has got a wicked resume that include the Saints and Soldiers trifecta, Forever Strong, and the sci-fi series called Extinct. He did 7 of those. So that's amazing. 7 different TV episodes as well as all the movies. This guy, he works his butt off. He's worked with some of the greatest actors from Lord of the Rings alumni to action stars like Mr. Dolph Lundgren and Mickey Rourke. This guy was a treat to talk to, and he defines what a person pursuing greatness is. You guys are going to be inspired throughout the entire interview. Check out everything Ryan's doing check out everything Ryan's done at ryanlittledirector.com. He's active almost daily on Instagram at his handle ryanlittle_director. Yes, he will write back to you. The guy is awesome. That's how I got a hold of him. If you guys like this interview, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe, share, and leave us a review on iTunes. It does nothing but help the podcast get huge exposure. As always, we're at perchofbirds.com. Our Instagram is a Perch of Birds Media. And lastly, facebook.com/APOB Media. I love all your faces, people. Keep pursuing greatness. Hey, we got Ryan Little on the podcast, A Perch of Birds. Definitely humbled to have you on, man. You've got a lengthy resume. Had a little bit of a audio issue, but we're back in the saddle here. So, the question was put: what was your first film experience, or what really got you into film, man?
Yeah, so the first film experience for me was on a TV show called 21 Jump Street. I got to be an extra. This is back in the late 80s when the exchange rate from American dollars to Canadian dollars was so good that all these American companies were coming up to Vancouver and shooting. And I don't remember how I got invited to do it, but I was an extra in a couple episodes of 21 Jump Street. And that was like my first experience on a film set. And previous to that, my love for film probably comes from a couple things. One, my dad was really into making 8mm movies, these really elaborate 8mm movies about James Bond and all kinds of just cool stuff when he was a kid. And he would show those to me, and that always inspired me. And then also, I remember my dad taking me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I remember coming out of that movie and specifically saying to my father, I don't know what that job is, but that's what I want to do. I didn't even know. I didn't even know who Spielberg was. I just knew that. I didn't know if it was one person involved, 20 people, 1,000. I had no idea how it was done, but I knew that I wanted to work in the film industry.
Of course. Yeah. Well, and I think that's any boy's dream, going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, man.
For sure. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I'll ride that ride over and over going to Disney just so that I can kind of relive like I'm Indiana himself.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure you know the origins of Steven Spielberg, because that was kind of his start was 8mm. He was making like little, kind of ticky-tacky war films and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So did you kind of use him as an idol, I guess, in order to...
Yeah, he's definitely a big inspiration. And what I like about Spielberg's movies, I like lots of filmmakers, but when I was young and I watched Spielberg's movies, Jaws is another one that really inspired me. I just liked his range of what he was doing. There would be serious moments, there would be comedic moments, there would be endearing moments. It was quite the roller coaster of a ride in his movies, and I liked that because and there was adventure and all those kinds of elements that just made it a fun film watching experience, and I just really enjoyed that about him. And so he was a big inspiration for me for the kinds of movies I want to make. And if you go back and look through the movies that I have made, you'll probably see some influences there. I wouldn't say I understand his cinematic style that well. It's not like, oh, he always does this shot this way and I'm going to do it this way. I don't think
Sure.
I've never studied him that closely. I'm sure there are people who have. But just more of the organic feeling of his style is probably what I probably gravitate towards and try to put into my films. And there have been people who are like, oh yeah, you kind of seem like a Spielberg kind of filmmaker. And I take that as a compliment. So.
I was going to say, that's got to be a huge compliment, man.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's saying I'm as good as Spielberg. I think they just said
Right.
your style feels like Spielberg. So I just want to make that clear. So
Absolutely. No, and like watching Saints and Soldiers, I noticed, that came out slightly after Saving Private Ryan, and I saw that, it wasn't, and I'm not putting that into a, I like you said, you're not emulating him directly,
Sure.
but you can definitely see a lot of that influence. And I like the fact that you were really working into the story, and you were, it wasn't just all action and shooting and killing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though it was, if I'm correct, Saints and Soldiers, wasn't that a Call of Duty collaboration somehow? I noticed that it said that at the beginning.
Well, there has been some collaborations with other companies, but Saints and Soldiers, specifically the very first one, because there's three of them. The very first one was all independently funded and done, and there was no collaboration with anybody else.
Okay, maybe it was just the one that I had seen, because that was 2003, right?
2003, yeah, it came out.
Okay,
yeah, 2003, yeah. There is World of Tanks, which we collaborated with on the third one. And I can't remember if there's a collaboration on the second one, but on the first one, it's just me and my business partner, Adam Abel, and of course the people that financed it. So it was all just us. Yeah.
You guys did a phenomenal job on that, man. I remember watching that when I was a kid, and it was like, living with my roommates, and we'd go through a movie night with, war movies, and it was Saving Private Ryan, Saints and Soldiers. We'd throw down a few of the classics. I mean, we've even moved forward now to where, like, I'll watch Fury, and I'm like, damn, man, I got to start watching them again. Put on Saints and Soldiers, put on Saving Private Ryan, go back through it. Do you prefer the World War II stuff? I know you have the War Pigs movie. You have...
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't think I ever, planned to... just do World War II movies. I like all kinds of movies. I like just good movies in general. They could be, it could be a sci-fi horror, it could be a romantic comedy, it could be a dramatic movie, it could be anything. I just like good stories, basically. But I really have gravitated to doing the World War II stories a lot, because I really like the idea that they honor people, and they're based on real people that have sacrificed so much, for the freedoms of this country. And I just like telling their stories. They're always very compelling, what drives those people. And so it's a genre that I'm very comfortable with, and I always feel fulfilled, when I do one of those projects. Some of the other things I've done, I've also enjoyed doing, but they're fictitious and they're silly and they're fun, and it was great to do. But at the end, I'm not as fulfilled.
Right.
But, especially when we took the first Saints and Soldiers to the film festival markets, we had a lot of World War II veterans, still alive then. That was back in 2004. So we still had a lot of those veterans around. And it was great to just have those people come up to us and say, hey, you guys have done a really good job. I'm really proud of you guys.
What an experience.
Yeah. That's a huge compliment. I mean, that's a better... You get a better feeling from a World War II veteran saying, hey, I really like the way you told the story, and let me tell you my story, or I'm really proud of you, than it is to get a good review in a newspaper, from someone who wasn't in World War II.
Right.
And they would come, and one of the cool things is they would come sometimes and they would be like, finally, here's a World War II movie that I can show to my grandkids, that's not uber violent,
Right.
And not to say that they thought that we did a real, super realistic portrayal of a World War II movie with the language and the gore and all those things that we've seen in some other great movies. But we presented something that they could show to, say, one of their grandkids who's maybe too young to see a movie like that. And that grandkid could get a taste of what that their grandparent went through, and get an appreciation for the sacrifices they made. And so that was a big part of it.
Well, and I feel like you also were putting a lot of focus on the brotherhood and the camaraderie between the soldiers. And that was something that plays out very strongly, because there was a lot of emotion there where, like you said, not most, but a lot of World War II movies are very action packed and boom, boom, boom,
Yeah. Well, and two is, when it comes to independent filmmaking, there's all these wonderful stories, but you do have to step back and you have to look at the story you want to tell and realistically look at your budget and say, okay, how are we going to tell this story? How are we going to do it justice with the amount of money and time that we have? Because you can have a wonderful story and not enough money to make it. And if you attempt to do it, you can fail miserably because you just don't have the resources and time to do the story justice.
Sure.
And so in respect to Saints and Soldiers, with having under $1 million to make that movie,
wow,
we had to really, strategically almost build it in a way around locations and
sure.
Resources that we had. You have to kind of do it a little bit backwards.
Okay.
And there's always, no matter how organized you are and how many great people you have and resources, there's always a chunk of it that's luck. Always. Doesn't matter your budget or how talented you are as a filmmaker or whatever. Every filmmaker out there, every film, there's a magic mixture that goes on that nobody knows really what happened. And it just magically comes together, with the cast and the locations and the script and the director and the DP and all the wonderful people that are talented and help to make that product. So it's like catching lightning in a bottle, right?
Right. So that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So we make Saints and Soldiers, we're making it. We have no idea if we're making something good. We're passionate about it. We're all excited about what we're making, but we don't really know if anybody else is going to like it. I mean, I remember going through all these edits of the movie. I mean, just hundreds of hours of watching the movie. By the time we were done and people were like, what do you think? Is it good? I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, it's watchable, I guess. I don't know.
Right. I've seen it 1,000 times. That's how we are with editing the podcast, because it's the same damn thing. You'll hear the same audio, the same words, the same conversation 1,000 times, and that you try to pick out a favorite. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, I kind of get tired of hearing myself.
Yeah. Usually when I finish a movie, I mean, I'm just like, I don't want to look at it anymore. I hope somebody likes it. I don't know who that's going to be.
Right.
And I just kind of walk away from it,
So my biggest question would be in a film like this, do you guys bring on vets or somebody that's like a war, like somebody that kind of tells you what should have been and, hey, you're doing this wrong? I mean, how does that go?
Yeah. So, obviously Saints and Soldiers, the first one, not knowing anything, being a novice to what's a good idea and how to approach it. Luckily I had done a short World War II film called The Last Good War, which is just a very intimate, small film between two soldiers trapped in a winter storm. And I had luckily met some World War II reenactors through hunting and trying to find some uniforms for this short film. And because I had that resource from the short film, I said, I want to do a feature now. And they were able to help me bring on people who were historians, fellow reenactors who came and were extras in the movie. They knew and had done the research on how the wardrobe needed to look, what was the correct location, all that kind of stuff. Sure. So we definitely had advisors on the set. And in respect to World War II, specifically World War II vets, we never had a World War II vet on set. There was a gentleman by the name of Ray Meldrum who was a World War II collector and reenactor, and he knew lots of vets. And so I think he, through his knowledge and talking to the vets that he knew, he was able to make sure that we did it accurately. But we were shooting in the winter and stuff, and I think to have a World War II vet on set with us would be kind of rough a little bit. Yeah, some of the conditions were not ideal. We were up on a steep hill, and in the trees and the snow and stuff, and But then later on, as we did the second Saints and Soldiers and the third Saints and Soldiers, we would do interviews with World War II vets. For example, Saints and Soldiers: The Void, which is a story about M18 Hellcats, which are tank destroyers. I had the opportunity to interview a couple guys, World War II vets, who actually were in Hellcats. And and so we sat down and talked about the radio commands that they would use and the protocol, and if they saw an enemy, like what would be their strategy, and was it cold in the winter? How'd you keep yourself warm? Where'd you keep your food? What did you use each of these compartments for? And so that was a real bonus to do that. But like I said, on the first movie, I don't know, we were just we were just winging it, right? But by the second and third movie, we were like, okay, these are the lessons we learned from the first movie. So on the second and third movie, we were more strategic about doing that research and meeting those veterans and getting it right and doing all the things and learning from our mistakes on the first film.
Increasing your skill across the board then, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you guys shoot in these locations, I mean, you're looking for snow. I mean, I've always wondered about that. Like, do you guys have to take these things in one shot so the snow's not disturbed? I mean, is that these factors come into play when you guys are trying to set these things up?
Well, the good thing about shooting in the woods is that a tree is a tree is a tree. So if you go for a wide shot, say one angle, and everyone's running to the snow and you've now wrecked all the snow, you just turn the camera 45 degrees and there's a whole new patch of snow. And so you can just, and you can do that, to some degree. A lot of times what we would do is if I picked a really pretty background, and I knew where I wanted them to start and where I wanted them to end the shot, I would explain that to them, and then we would rehearse it somewhere off camera, off to the side where we weren't going to shoot.
Right.
And they'd be like,
where
okay,
you can muddle up the snow.
Yeah, we would rehearse off to the side, and they'd be like, okay, I get it. Then they would hike out into the woods off to the side and get into the starting position, and they've already rehearsed it off to the side, so they knew what they were going to do, and then they would repeat it. And usually on the first take, they would get it right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then once they've wrecked the snow, then we would sometimes do a second shot. We would move the camera, and then maybe we wouldn't show the snow where they walked. We would go a little tighter. So we would get like a second angle to cut to, and they would repeat the action, but the second time you wouldn't be as wide. And so you wouldn't see, they could walk again in the same spot without seeing their feet,
Sure. And you've seen movies where they've done, they've used snow machines, and then they've used soap flakes. I've seen them use, but I'm sure that's on a set. I mean, and how much of Saints and Soldiers was done? And I'm just using this as an example.
No, that's great. Sorry, go ahead. You got what you're saying.
Well, I was going to say, how much of that was done in like inside of a studio compared to the stuff that we saw outside? It looked like almost all of it was done outside, right?
Yeah, we didn't really have very much money to build sets. We only had one set, which was the cabin set where they kind of hide out where the French lady lives in the movie.
Right. Okay.
And so we had built some walls for that, and that was really our only set. Everything else was done on location. We designed the movie around locations we knew existed, and so. A lot of the stuff is what it really is. It's a fallen down building, and we shot inside a fallen down building, and we just made it look like it was a period by doing some dress. Just going back real quick to your question about snow, we filmed this movie in Alpine, Utah, and usually in Utah in January, there's a lot of snow.
Okay.
And this year in Utah, there wasn't that much. And so we actually had to make a lot. We were snow hunters.
Really?
Yeah. And if you go back and look at the film carefully, you'll notice a couple things now that I've told you. So to make snow fall on us when there wasn't snow, we would use potato flakes.
Oh, wow. That's legit. I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, we'd have these big giant E fans, and then they would throw the potato flakes into it, and then that would kind of filter down on us. And if you look in some of the shots, you'll notice that the snow, when it lands on their shoulder and stuff, is not like pure white. It actually is just slightly yellow, and that's because those are buttered instant potatoes. So that's the butter flavor, right?
I was gonna say, so do you guys pick a certain brand or anything like that, or is it just whatever you can find a lot of?
No, at that time we would literally just go to the grocery store and buy everything they had. I mean, we would just, if you wanted instant potatoes in the month of January in Utah, you weren't going to find them because we owned every box. I mean, that's how crazy it was. And then in addition to that, the other two things we did to make snow is we used what we call snow blankets, which are basically just big sheets of batting, if that's the right word, that you can get at a fabric store.
Okay.
So they're like 4-foot long rolls. And as long as you put them far enough in the background and roll them out, throw a couple leaves on them, and they're out of focus, if they're in the deep background, you can't tell that they're not snow. So we did a lot of that. And then the other thing we did is we had this this invention, which was like, I can't explain how it works, but it was like a snow machine, and it made actually foam. And I don't remember the mixture, how it was done, but you could spray this foam and it would last about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And you'd spray this foam and you kind of shoot the trees and stuff. And actually, if you go back and look at the movie in some of the scenes, you'll notice that the snow is like little doodles, like little white doodles, right? And
Gotcha.
And you're like, wait a second, snow doesn't fall like that. And so the trees have got all these like looks like somebody went and like put icing all over them. But if you're not paying attention, it looks like snow. But then when you go back and you look, you're like, snow doesn't fall on trees like that. It looks like somebody like put like white icing all over it. So,
yeah, but it speaks to your skill. I mean, I definitely did not notice any of that until now. I'm going to go back and be like, man, okay, so we were really not that snowy of a winter wonderland.
No, we were lucky. I mean, we did get probably a few days of real good snow, and we definitely took advantage of that and shot as many wide vista shots as we could when we got the snow. But then once we lost the snow, we had to shoot a lot of stuff really tight, or we had to go and hunt out little patches of snow that were like in the shade where the sun hadn't melted it. Wow. We had to shoot in these little pockets. So we were definitely always hunting snow. So there you go.
Damn global warming, man.
If anybody wants to hear a podcast about snow and making movies, this is the podcast episode to listen to.
Well, it's got a little bit of I figured we'd get a little bit of details that maybe somebody wouldn't know, about some filmmaking stuff. Because I know that you moved on to War Pigs, and then I'm sure that you gleaned a lot of these skills in order to get War Pigs on point, and and then working with bigger actors. Does that come with just like becoming more, getting more recognition as a director in Hollywood? I mean, how does that work? Because I'm sure you had a bigger budget there.
Yeah, War Pigs is a little bit of a different movie. The 3 Saints and Soldiers movies are produced also by me, and they're from my production company with my business partner, Adam Abel. So those are really ours. Those are ones that we can completely control. War Pigs was a gun for hire type show where another company had seen Saints and Soldiers and said, hey, we really like Saints and Soldiers. We're doing this war film. We'd like you to direct it. And I was like, sure, I'll come and do it. And, in that case, those guys were really in charge of what their vision was and everything. So it's kind of like client work, sort of, So if you look at the Saints and Soldiers movies and look at War Pigs, and I got this comment a lot, they're like, is this directed by the same guy? These movies feel different. Like these three kind of feel like they're by the same guy, and this one feels different. And
like a different flavor.
Yeah. And that's because there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, let's just say, on War Pigs. I still enjoyed the experience, but it was just a different experience than what I had been used to when it came to the war films. And yes, to answer your question, the budget was definitely substantially bigger, which allowed them to have, Luke Goss and Chuck Liddell and Dolph and Mickey Rourke. And in fact, to be honest with you, when you do that kind of stuff and you get some of those kind of bigger names, a lot of your budget actually ends up going to them. So even though War Pigs looks like it has big actors in it, it was a much more expensive movie, the actual budget to make the movie, not including, is really quite small. And
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it wasn't like, hey, Ryan, here's 3 times the budget you've done a Saints and Soldiers movie on. You can do so much more with that. More shooting days and all this, and more toys. You don't get more toys. You just have bigger actors in, your little budget. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It was like if Dolph Lundgren showed up and was in Saints and Soldiers, the movie wouldn't have been any bigger. He just would have been in a lot of the shots in my little movie.
Right, because you only had so much for the actual production and the shooting.
Yeah. And a lot of times the reason that you bring on, in independent film specifically, you bring on named actors is because of things like, distribution specifically, foreign sales, right? Countries, they're looking for certain things, they're looking for, say, with a war film, they're looking for a certain amount of action in the episode or in your film, as well as they're looking for, who's in it? How am I going to sell this movie in France? I mean, who is your named actor? Who is your selling thing for me to sell, in my country? And so it's kind of a requirement
Sure. I've got to imagine that's got to bring some frustration as a director, though. Like, if you don't have, do you feel that if you were to pick up a film and you don't have one of these, I would say, A-list or more known name, do you feel like your film automatically is not going to do as well? Or is that something that you guys don't, do you guys even?
Well, it's, I don't know if two-edged sword is the right term for this, but we'll just say this. There's pros and cons to both situations, right? The pro to having named actors in your movie is you'll get better offers and distribution. Foreign countries will offer you more money and all that. But then at the same time, those actors you brought in cost you more money. So, you could make the same movie for $300,000, or you can make the exact same movie with famous people for $1.3 million.
Right.
So you got to make sure that if you're going to put a named actor in a movie, that they're really going to matter. Because one actor could mean something to one country and not mean anything to another. So you kind of have to do your homework and say, hey, we'll use Dolph Lundgren as an example. We're going to put Dolph in our movie. He's going to cost us this much money of our budget. But if we put Dolph in our movie, this country, and this country are going to offer us these large sums of money, which is going to end up paying for what we paid him plus additional revenue. So it's totally worth it to have Dolph in this movie. At the same time, you might put an actor in your movie and one country be like, well, I'm not even going to buy your movie if he's in the movie. We don't
some politically charged guy or something.
Right. Sure. So it's a bit of a gamble, When it comes to making independent films without named actors, you can do it. But then in a way, the way you kind of have to offset that is it's like, okay, my selling point isn't going to be a famous person. I better have some other, I'll say some other thing that they can sell. So if you do a really cool movie, first of all, it has to be a good story. But second of all, if it has amazing visual effects or it has tons of action or whatever it is that those countries is also on their checklist, then you might be fine. And you might get a lot of money out of those countries. I think an example of that would be Gareth Edwards, who directed Rogue One.
Okay.
His first movie was called Monsters. And he shot this thing independently with two, at that time, unknown actors for, I don't know, $300,000 or something when all was said and done. And it was a huge success. And the concept was great. The visual effects, which he did all himself, were great. And it's a great film, and it was hugely successful. And he had no marketable actors at the time, but what he did have is just a great concept, good visual effects, and people loved it. And didn't need to have famous people in it, Right. So it does work, but I guess in the end, you have to plan it out carefully. You have to have a strategy. You can't just go in and wing it, which is what we did on the first Saints and Soldiers. Right.
But look what it did for you, right? A lot of people are fans. I was instantly drawn to that when I was a kid, and it's still something that I go back and watch even, I just turned 30, man. So that's something that I watch. I put it on for my boy, and he just turned 7. And to speak to, the what you were talking about with, I'm gonna go back to, you were saying somebody else kind of leading the show when it comes to you being a hired gun. I was an extra. I've done a few extra roles. They make a ton of movies here in New Mexico, and I was on the Transcendence set with Johnny Depp and Morgan Freeman. Yeah. And I remember watching, a producer get into an argument with, I wouldn't say it was the director. I honestly wouldn't know who it was that he was comparatively, but I think he was the assistant director. And it kind of spilled out of a trailer, and they were really angry at each other, but it was because the producer was saying that the clothing that one of the characters that was going to be in a principal shot, wasn't matching what they had set up, Sure. And, as an extra, you're kind of corralled over in a corner and, so you're not even allowed to go and say anything. But I thought it was very interesting to see that even the directors themselves, in a situation like that, where I'm sure there's a huge budget with Johnny Depp and Morgan Freeman and all the actors that were in that, they didn't really have as much pull. Do you get a lot of pushback when you have some sort of creative difference? Or, how much power do you have as a director in a situation like that?
Well, that really comes down to the setup of the movie. So when it comes to the Saints and Soldiers movies, I'm only accountable to my business partner, Adam Abel, because we own the company together, and then of course the person who financed it.
Sure.
And so that's really it. Those are the people that I'm responsible to, be accountable for what my part of the process. When you're a gun for hire as a director, it doesn't matter if it's a huge film or a small film. a lot of times people think that the director is in charge, but really the director's not in charge. The producers are in charge. And if it's a studio film, the studio is in charge. Sure. And so you can imagine all these layers. The director keeps getting pushed down to a point where sometimes they're just told what to do. I've heard stories where commercial directors will get their first feature and a big named other director, studio director or studio executive comes and basically hands them the shot list and says, here, this is what you're shooting today. And the director is just okay, and then just does what's on the shot list. That's an actual true story from a filmmaker that I know. And he just said, I'm never going to do features again because it's too controlling,
Sure.
It's not freeing enough for me as a filmmaker. Now, if you do an independent film and it's small budget and it's your gig, then you have a lot more say. It's a lot more of your vision. That's why you always hear like in interviews and stuff, sometimes some directors are like, well, I get final say, I get final cut. Because they're tired of people just, messing with their vision, saying, yeah, I don't like that. We're going to take that out of the movie. And we're going to take this out of the movie. And that director's like, yeah, but that's the whole story. That's the thing that I was trying to tell. And now you're removing it from it. And guess what? The audience doesn't go, oh, that studio executive is to blame here. Ooh, bad studio executive. They look at the director and say, this guy's not talented. Or this lady's not talented.
Who directed this? What is this?
Yeah. Who is this? This lady who directed this is awful. It's like, well, you got to remember she's got a lot of people behind her telling her what to do. So I think when you get up to the level of Spielberg or Ridley Scott or people like that, one of the first things they probably put in their contract is I get final say on the final cut. And if you don't like it, tough. This is a Ridley Scott film and this is what you get.
True creative freedom, man. That's right. I mean, and I think that really shows the dichotomy of the issues that you could have as a director. Because I mean, I've been on a few sets. I just done extra work, but to watch a director just basically freak out it's kind of scary because everybody just goes quiet and they're like, oh, what did they do?
Yeah. I haven't had too many freakouts on set. There's only
you can tell me your secrets. Come on, Ryan.
I'm trying to remember. I'm actually pretty even most of the time. I don't yell at actors or anything. I'll certainly stand my ground. I mean, if someone is being a turd on set, I'll certainly call them out on it because that's not how it should be. I don't like it, and this doesn't happen very often, but I don't like it when actors talk down to crew people and stuff. I shut that down pretty fast because everybody's working hard. You could be the main actor in the movie and you're doing an awesome job and you're working hard. I believe that. But PAs are working hard too.
Absolutely.
And to be honest with you, PAs are probably working 16 hours or at least 2 or 3 hours longer than you. They're there before you get there. They're there after you leave. Those guys are getting, for little pay too.
$10 an hour or something like that. I've had these guys tell me some stories about some hours they've put in, man. That's horrible.
And as a PA, you're kind of starting at the bottom because you're what they call paying your dues, but you still deserve respect. And I try to remember that everybody on that crew is passionate about filmmaking. I don't want to kill anyone's passion for filmmaking. I don't want to talk down to anyone and have them go, I hate working in this industry. I don't want to work on it. That director was so mean to me. I'm going to go be an accountant now. Or
sure.
I'm going to go, work with my parents at their Photoshop, or I'm going to go be a doctor or whatever. And their dream of being a filmmaker dies because of somebody being rude to them. So anyway, sorry to get off on a tangent. I like it when everybody is a family on set and everybody's having a good time because filmmaking should be fun. It should be fun. It should not it should not be a screaming match. So.
Well, and I think that and I did a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. I can say that. It was an interesting little comedy that they had done. And I had never seen improv done, shot after shot until I had watched this happen. And I thought it was really interesting because you kind of had to play along with the actor and do this joke, this punchline over and over and over. And it was very interesting to me that they, you couldn't be in a bad mood. You couldn't have that unfamily feeling because then that actor, I'm sure they're not going to be feeling it, and you're trying to get this principal shot, got everybody lined up, and they would do this punchline, and if they didn't like something, it's like, hey, whatever you need, man, we'll take care of you, because it seemed like they wanted to keep them, keep them rolling. You know what I mean? Like, let's keep you in a good mood. You know what I mean? Even if there's a disagreement. And but things like that with improvs and stuff like that, how often are you guys trying to bait an actor into something like that in order to get them to, really like have their acting shine? Is that something you guys do a lot, or are you guys scripting every piece of these things and trying to make sure it's your vision?
Well, I think every project is different. Obviously the majority of the projects I've worked on have been dramatic pieces, so we've stayed pretty close to the script. However, in the beginning process, when we bring on the cast, we try to have conversations early up front about everything related to the story and the character. And so each actor, I try to sit down with them and talk to them about their character, get their take on what they'd like to do with the character. And when you cast somebody, sometimes you can't find someone that's exactly like the character you wrote. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to find the person that you think is best for the role, and then you have to somewhat cater the character to that person, play to their strengths, and so that way that character comes off sincere and real based on the person you cast in that part. And so you'll sit down with an actor and you'll go through it, and basically I'll say, this is kind of this is how I envisioned the character. How do you envision the character? Okay, you had some good suggestions. Let's make some changes. Let's make a few changes here. Let's do this in this scene, and let's make him carry this prop, and let's make this really important to this character. And for this character, let's make her goal is going to be this. Let's do that. Let's make that change, because then that way the actor feels like
they're owning it.
They're owning it and they're comfortable with it. They're not being forced to do something that they're like, I say this, but my character's been doing all these other things. It just seems out of character. And that really messes up the actor's performance sometimes, because they're like trying to perform something that doesn't feel right. And it comes off insincere, and it ends up a lot of times being cut out of the movie because it's just weird. So you have to really get the actor to a place where they feel comfortable with your vision. They've expressed their vision. You've made changes, so that way you're not trying to do it on set. I try not to, because money is flying out the window while you're on set. I mean,
every minute I'm sure it counts.
Yeah. It's much better to have those collaborating meetings with actors before you get on set. When it's much more affordable to sit there all day and go through the script and talk about it. But on set, you have to make changes sometimes, but you want the changes to be small and quick. It's like, hey, what if I said this? I'm like, great, do it, say it. Let's film that. Boom, done. All right, let's move on. But if you're having a big, long conversation about, the arc of my character in this scene, let's rewrite this whole scene. I mean, you're host. Yeah. You're not going to get anything. You're going to shoot a wide shot, and guess what? You're going to have to wrap, and then that scene's going to suck. So you need to have those conversations with actors before. And the other thing is, actors need to feel from the director specifically that they're safe, that you're creating a safe environment for them to really become those characters. And when they feel like you're truly looking out for them, that you truly want them to shine in the part, and that you want them to know that you're not going to make them look dumb, then they're much more trustworthy, and they give you a much better performance because they know that you're there looking out for them. And so I always try to create what I call a safe environment for the actors. And like, for example, I'll give an example, like when they have an emotional scene, I go and I talk to the crew beforehand. I said, listen, we're going to do an emotional scene, and she needs time to prepare for this scene, and she needs it quiet. So we're going to make sure we got fresh batteries on the camera. We have a new memory card in the camera. We're going to keep it really quiet, guys. If you have to talk or have a conversation, go have it outside the studio. We're going to give her time to prep. She's going to tell us the minute she's ready. We need to make sure our focus marks, everything, the lighting, everything is already ready to go. Because when she comes in, we're going to shoot her close up first. We're going to get her emotional, important shot first. And she's going to give that to us. And then we're going to get our other coverage after that. And that way when that actor comes to set, they're not worried about like, oh, is the card going to run out? Is the battery going to die? Right. Are they going to want to tweak lighting while I'm trying to stay emotionally in this character? Right? They know that you're looking out for them, and they know that when they get to set that they're going to be able to do the thing that they wanted to do and not worry about those things because you've made it safe for them.
And I've heard of like Telemundo and like Univision, like those more soap opera kind of Spanish TV shows. A lot of those actresses, a lot of the times are trained to almost cry on cue, and they're really good at it. And maybe I'm using a bad example, but in terms of actors and actresses, do you find that it's hard to draw that out of them, or is it? I mean, it really depends on the skill level of the actor.
Well, I mean, some actors, yeah, every actor has a different skill set. Some have and everybody has gifts. Like some actors are just really coordinated, right? Some actors are really good at continuity. They know exactly when they pick up a prop, exactly when they put it down. They're really good that way. Other actors are really good, say, at just crying on cue. I know a couple actors that literally you just say, okay, and then when you say this line, start crying, and they can do it. Other actors be like, no, I can't do that. I need to be in I need to listen to some music, or I need a moment to think about something that will trigger that for me. So when you start working with an actor, you kind of learn quickly, what kind of actor they are and what their strengths are. And like, for example, is this actor really good on take one, and as time goes on, they get worse? Or do they need a few takes to kind of get in the groove, and by take 3 and 4, they're awesome? Right. And then that teaches you like which person to shoot first, and like some actors, like they need to have no distractions. Like when they're looking towards the other actor, there can't be anyone behind them in close to their eye lines, because it'll pull them out of the character. Their element. Sure. There's other people that be like, you can have 50 people back there, I don't even see them. They're just not there to me. So you just kind of figure out each character's strengths, or each actor's strengths and abilities, and then kind of work with that, But you're right, yeah. Like some actors can just cry on cue, and others need a little more time to prepare. They have a different process, right? Right.
And speaking to you saying about the actors kind of like getting into the mode, I may be kind of moving on a little bit further out of the film stuff, but I know that you have your TV show Extinct, or you did one season of Extinct.
Yeah.
Do those guys, from episode 1 onward, I understand that they may not be shot chronologically the way that we're watching the show, but do you feel that in those instances where I would imagine that you're filming longer than you are a movie, do they develop more into the character as time goes on? Or, I mean, do you feel like that's something that you kind of, again, have to, find the guy to shoot first, and then, get their strengths? And I mean,
yeah, I think the big difference between shooting a film and television is obviously television is much longer format, right?
Sure.
You've got lots of episodes. There's a lot. The character arc and the getting to know the character is more developed in television because you have more time to do it.
Sure.
You're seeing them in different situations. You're seeing the choices they make in different situations, and so you're getting to know them better. But one of the things that's interesting with television is that when a director comes on a TV set, because it's a TV series, not a film, a lot of times the director is not really directing the actors the same way they would as on a film. On a film, because it's your vision and everyone's supporting your vision as the director, and you're going on that journey, you're starting that journey with the actors, you're starting from ground zero. And so the characters are being created together from ground zero. If you come in on, say, a show like Supernatural and it's season 9, and you say, hey, Jared Padalecki, it would be really great if, you held the gun sideways when you came through the door. He's going to be like, no.
I've never done that.
I've never done that for 8 seasons. I'm not going to start now,
Sure.
So I think TV actors still appreciate, insight and opinions and suggestions from the director. But the directing process is a little different because on a TV show, the actors know their characters so well, and the directors keep coming, right? Different directors. So you're more of a guest, right? So with Extinct, though, because I directed the pilot and a handful of episodes after that, I was there from ground zero. So the actors and myself and the showrunner and the other people involved were developing those characters together. So I understood the characters as well as the actors did because I was there at the beginning. Had I come in as a guest director, say on episode 9, and not been there for the first 8 episodes, my only insight to the characters would be to watch the previous episodes.
Sure.
I I might, as a guest director, I might make some suggestions about something the actors are like, no, you see, in episode 3, I did this, which means I wouldn't do that.
Wow.
And you're like,
okay.
oh, good point. So anyway, both are very fulfilling as a director, to direct television and to direct features, but it's just a little bit of a different mindset, you know?
So then I guess kind of to tangent a little bit, just for sake of asking, what are you watching? What's a TV show that you're into, or you look forward to the next season, man? What are you a big fan of?
Well, here's what's kind of funny about me. This is an observation. I seem to like to watch shows that I know are in their final season. Like, I know when they're going to end. I don't start watching the final season, but like, I never seem to want to watch a show that is like now, and I don't know how many seasons it's going to go. I like to know, like, so like, for example, like I recently watched The Strain.
Oh, I just started that. Yes. Okay.
Well, the nice thing about The Strain is like, I know how many seasons there are.
Right.
I know where the end point is, right? I loved Falling Skies.
Okay.
That was a great one. I love Dark Matter. I just enjoy Dark Matter because it was sci-fi. It was fun. It had good action. It was well done. Good writing. Cool characters. What else have I love 12 Monkeys.
Okay.
And that, of course, just finished its last season. But I really like 12 Monkeys.
What about Atlanta? Are you a fan at all of Atlanta? Have you seen that?
No, I didn't see that.
That's Donald Glover's piece, the Childish Gambino rapper, but his actual name's Donald Glover. But I guess it's his first shot at it, and I guess he took home an Emmy last year, and then their most recent season is supposed to be up for that. But I honestly had just heard about it, and then I'm kind of a sci-fi guy more than anything, or something that's kind of unique, like Breaking Bad was, So when I saw that, I was like, like the rapper story, but I really enjoyed the fact that it played to a lot of things that are active right now in politics and a lot of, it was very unique to me, and I like shows like that, but it's hard for me to get drawn into drama kind of stuff. Do you prefer like action sci-fi, or do you prefer like drama, or it just depends on the show?
Well, I think when it comes to just watching something, I enjoy things that are maybe a little bit lighter. Okay. Like I don't watch a lot of horror movies, even though I love horror movies. Like John Carpenter's The Thing is like one of my favorites. I think when it comes to just casual watching, like if it's the end of the day and I want to watch something, I don't want to watch anything that's going to be too like depressing, because I'm going to go to sleep and I don't want to be thinking about depressing things when I go to sleep.
Like American Horror Story or something like that?
Yeah. There's so much television now, I can't even keep up with it. Like sure. I want to watch like Ozark, but I haven't had any time. Sure. I want to watch that. I don't just watch sci-fi. I know all the shows I just picked, I've gravitated towards. But a lot of times I think the sci-fi stuff is cool. It's got some action. It's got some dramatic stuff. And it also has some fun to it. Sure. Like the sci-fi shows always seem to have some humor, some banter. And I enjoy that. I think that's why I gravitate towards watching those as a viewer. Definitely when I'm researching a movie or something like that, then I'll start watching all kinds of things that I don't normally watch, because I want to get in the right mindset for, a medieval movie or whatever it is that I might be trying to research.
Would I be correct in saying that that's method directing? Would that be kind of like...
Maybe. Could be a little method directing. Yeah, could be. That's possible. Yeah.
So those are some TV shows. What's probably one of your favorite movies all time?
Well, Raiders of the Lost Ark is definitely my favorite because, and I'm not saying that like, if I was to see Raiders of the Lost Ark today, with all the other movies I've seen, I may not pick it as my favorite, but I'm going to pick it as my favorite because when I saw it, it was the movie that triggered in my mind that I wanted to be a filmmaker. Right, it resonates with you. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's kind of my first love, right? So that's why Raiders is my top choice. I think Jaws is definitely up there. Jaws is definitely there. Blade Runner is definitely in there. I love Chris Nolan's movie, The Prestige.
Yes.
That's a beautiful, beautiful movie. I'm trying to think of some other ones I really like. There's so many great filmmakers and so many great movies. I love totally opposite. When it comes to romantic comedies, which I don't watch a lot of, I love Notting Hill.
Okay.
I watch that probably once a year. I love that movie. It's so funny.
I get pulled into P.S. I Love You a couple times a year with my wife.
Yeah. There's good movies in all genres, you know. If you enjoy the journey, it doesn't matter what genre it is, you know. But yeah, those are the kinds of some of the kinds of movies that I enjoy. Yeah, I like a good story. If the story's good, and like I just watched No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers again.
Yes. Oh, I love that movie.
And that's such a good movie, and it was funny because I think why I liked it so much was it didn't have a conventional ending. You know, the bad guy gets away, and the protagonist of the movie dies, or at least one of the protagonists.
Right.
So I think I like things that are unpredictable. When things aren't predictable, then I enjoy the journey more.
Right.
You know?
Plot twist.
Plot twist. Yeah. And it's definitely a lesson. After watching No Country for Old Men again, I was just like, you know, I need to be smarter about the story structure and the things I worked on. I don't want it to be too predictable. And it's a good lesson, you know, it's a good lesson to not just go with the formula every time, because people are like, yeah, you know, I know what's going to happen, you know, it's like,
right.
It's not fulfilling, I guess. Right. So
if you had a dream project or a dream actor that you could work with, is there anything like that you're still chasing that unicorn through the forest, man?
Oh yeah. Nice. That was a nice Blade Runner analogy there. So if I could have my druthers, I would love to do a remake of The Last Starfighter.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
Love that movie. Hey, you know, again, I'm not saying I'm going to get any of these things, so these are just my dreams. I'm throwing them out there. I would love to do a live action version of Johnny Quest.
Okay. That's interesting. That'd be cool as hell.
That'd be rad. I'm sure they've been trying to make it, and I'm sure there's all kinds of political things happening. I think the Hardy Boys actually would be cool too. I know that's kind of like not Johnny Quest, but
right.
Those kind of things I think would be fun to do. Actor wise, I think Hugh Jackman, man. I love that guy.
Mr. Hugh Jackman. Yeah, that dude's awesome. I mean, you can't throw him in a role that he can't play. I mean, between Les Miserables and then his X-Men stuff, I mean, he can't, I don't see anything that he can't do, you know? I think he's
Yeah, I think Hugh Jackman. I mean, there's a lot of great actors out there that I would love to work with, but I think if I got a chance to ever work with Hugh Jackman, I would just be like, this is awesome.
Right.
This cannot not be a fun experience, right?
So then in the same breath, and just because it's one of the questions I had written down, and I've interviewed kind of, you know, I would say that they're professionals, but they're kind of just moving into a realm that you might have when you were first starting out. But when it comes to cameras, I know that you had posted on Instagram that you were talking about one of the films that you had shot in 8mm, or was it 35mm? It was 35mm, and you said that you had missed doing that. But I've been told that. And I'd been told that 35mm was one of the, you know, as much as we would think that with the advent of super advanced cameras like the Red, you know, what is it? The Red Weaponed or whatever, the red weaponized. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, the Panavisions that, you know, they have on sets, they have people that actually escort these cameras around. And, you know, do you have a particular, you know, camera or film style that you prefer to shoot in? Like, do you like the super high def, you know, $100,000 cameras or?
Right. So, you know, the big thing to remember when it comes to, and big DPs will tell you this in interviews, you'll hear it all the time, and I think it's really true. The camera itself doesn't matter so much. You know, when it comes to the visual aspect of a show, it really comes down to composition and lighting. Those are the two key things. You can make an amazing movie with a really cheap camera, and if you've got good composition and good lighting, then you've achieved the goal, right?
Sure. And decent actors, I'm sure.
Yeah. But just from a visual standpoint, no audio. If you just took someone who wasn't an actor and you put them out there and all that, you know, what's more important is the composition and the lighting of what you're showing than the camera that you're using. So putting that aside, but that's always the driving thing behind, you know, deciding how we're going to shoot something is making sure that we achieve those two things. I loved shooting on 35. There's a beautiful quality of the 35. It's a chemical process. It's not a digital process. It's a chemical process. And there is something magical about shooting on film, and you can't explain it to anybody who's never shot on film. And a lot of times new and upcoming filmmakers are like, oh, film is dead, digital is the way to go. And in a lot of ways, that's really true. But there is a magical process that happens when shooting on film. And if you've shot on film, you understand what I'm saying. And if you haven't, it's almost impossible to understand it. But film is beautiful, and it's magical.
And it's cheaper too, right? I mean, nowadays, wouldn't that be cheaper?
I don't know. It just depends on, you have to buy the film costs a certain amount, first of all, the rolls of film. I think the camera rentals are cheaper now because people don't rent them very much. But the film costs you money. You have to have a process. Then you have to have it transferred. And then you end up editing it in digital anyway. And then people don't really show film prints that much anymore. There's very few places. Like I know the ArcLight in LA can do it and things like that. But I don't shoot on film anymore. Just because it's just easier to own your own gear. And just do digital now. It's so quick. You can play it back, you can look at it, you can immediately tell if there's an issue. If you shoot on film and you expose it incorrectly, or there's a scratch on the film, you don't know that for like a week until it gets back. Yeah. But if you shoot digital, you're giving it over to the DIT. He's looking at it like, say, an hour after you shot it. He can like, whoa, we got some issues. There's some weird pixel things going on here, or you exposed this totally wrong, or it's way out of focus. Those things can be caught right away.
Sure.
But different projects, I use different cameras. I have a Blackmagic Ursa Mini, which I love, and we used for Extinct, which was a great camera. Not great in low light, but it's a great camera. It's great for doing documentary work. I just love it for that. And then for higher end work now, I use an Alexa Mini, which I really like.
I haven't heard of that. Okay.
Yeah, Alexa Mini is what I use. I've used a Red before. Red's a great camera too. Sony makes great cameras, the Sony F55. They're all great cameras. You kind of just have to find one that you feel comfortable with. One that's not going to stress you out. One you like the design of it. You like its features. It makes sense to you. When you find the brain that works for you, then the lenses and the tripod and the matte box and all the accessories, you can put those on any camera, right?
Sure.
So
I could see how you guys have, that's not what the director is doing is jacking with the camera as much. I mean, once you guys kind of get that figured out, you got your guys' actual, the guys that are actually shooting with the cameras. And I've just seen this a few times. You're not actually holding the camera a lot of the time, right? Like you don't need to.
It depends on the project. So I started out as a director of photography. That's where I started. I didn't intend to be a director. I intended to be the guy behind the camera. And so I shot a lot of films for other people. And then I got to the point where I was like, I want to give this a try. And I actually, probably more than not, I actually shoot and direct. I do both.
Okay.
Most of the time. However, on films like War Pigs and Forever Strong, Outlaw Trail.
I didn't even talk about Forever Strong. Sorry, go ahead. I forgot.
No, but anyway, there's probably of my feature work, probably maybe half of those I only directed and I didn't shoot. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to give the actors more time with me. Because when you're directing and shooting, you're dividing your time between prepping with the actor for the scene and talking to the gaffer and the crew about camera position and lighting and all that kind of stuff. So you're dividing your attention. In other films where the budget was small or I just really wanted to be on the camera, I would do both and we would just make it work. And I don't know, for me, as a director, part of the story process is telling through visuals, is the when you decide to move the camera and how you move it and how you light it. And that's a part of my story process. So a lot of times, all the Saints and Soldiers movies, I directed and shot those. I did both.
Wow.
House of Fears, the picture I recently posted on Instagram, I directed and shot that movie. So I was both directing the actors and operating the camera. Yeah.
That's huge, man. How much longer do I have you for?
Until no one is listening to us anymore.
Well, the reason why I ask is because I'm going to get a little, I don't want to get a little woo-woo on you, but I had a question on this. I feel like with directors and stuff like that, you guys have a very high energy job, high attention. I'm sure you guys are burning through calories. How hard is it to keep up with your, are you having to work out when you're on these sets in order to burn off stress and stuff like that? Not necessarily on the set, but you do a big 18-hour long shoot. I mean, are you going to the gym or are you just trying to get some rest in and some food in you and right back at it? I mean, how do you take care of your health on the go?
Well, I think the first thing to do is in the pre-production stage is to get as prepared as possible, because you're not working crazy hours. And so get your shot lists done. Make sure you've just taken care of as many things as you possibly can, because the minute you go to production, it turns into insanity. And you're going to want to have those shot lists organized and ready. You're going to want to have all the decisions you could have made in pre-production done. So you're walking right into the thing you already decided. You don't want to be dealing with 50 choices or 50 things that you could have been doing a month ago on the day. I think when it comes to trying to take care of yourself, when you're shooting a movie, you pretty much, that's your whole life. Everything else hopefully is been already taken care of, or you can take care of it after you finish shooting. And you're basically showing up on set, shooting the day, going home. Hopefully you don't have to prep for the next day because you already pre-prepped in pre-production. Minimal prep for the next day. Maybe read the script pages for the next day, whatever it is, just review what you're going to do and go to bed. Don't try to do a bunch of stuff.
So sleep is key. Sleep is key.
Sleep is key. Sleep is very important. I always get to set early. I try to always get to set at least a half hour early, just so I can walk and think about what I'm going to do that day before anyone's there asking me a million questions. And stay away from the craft service table, or at least make a decision to say, every time I go to the craft service table, I'm going to drink a bottle of water and I'm going to eat something organic before I eat something processed. Because if you go to the table, drink some water, you've already filled up on water, which is good for you.
Right.
There's an apple, you eat the apple, maybe give yourself 10 minutes, come back, and you're probably not that hungry anymore. You're probably only going to eat one mini chocolate bar, not 5, right? I try not to drink any pop soda. I try really hard not to do that because that's not good for you.
Right.
You have to take extra care of yourself when shooting and then you can take emergency, put that in water at the beginning of the day, get extra vitamins or whatever in your system, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not eating well on set, you're going to shut down and you're going to get sick or something bad's going to happen.
Well, and especially when you're in some sort of like bad weather conditions, it's hot, it's cold. I mean, out in the snow, I'm sure you've got to at least keep yourself rolling with some hot chocolate or something, man.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times what I do is I drink hot lemon water in the winter, or even I drink a big thing of hot lemon water. Lemon water is good for you.
Sure.
Or some peppermint tea or things like that without any sugar in it. It doesn't sound very exciting, but that's what I try to take care of myself, and then, obviously have a little snack here and there that's not necessarily good for you as a treat, but try to set things that you have to do before you have that treat.
Sure.
If I drink the hot tea before I, do these other things, then I'm going to just be better for the whole day,
See, I got to
Don't start the day off with 2 Dr. Peppers and a package of white puffy donuts.
There you go.
Powdered donuts.
For all you listening, you heard it here. Ryan Little tells you, don't be eating that sugar, man. I made the mistake on the Transcendence set in the craft trailer. They actually had on tap Red Bull, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I wasn't thinking about it, and I'm sitting there and I pour an entire glass of this stuff, and then they call us on the set, and I was sitting there about to vibrate. I mean, I couldn't even, and I made the I made the mistake of doing that, and then you're starving, because your metabolism's kicked up. You got to use the bathroom, and you're locked in for 2 hours,
Well, and the problem too is if you drink a Monster or Red Bull, if you're going to do that, you need to do it early in the day, because if you do it late in the day, then you're going to have a buzz. You're not going to go to sleep. You're going to get 3 hours of sleep, and the next day you're going to be destroyed. So energy drinks are kind of dangerous. You want to make sure at the end of the day that you're truly tired, and when you get back to your hotel or whatever, you're going to just
drop.
You're gonna drop. You don't want to, like, that's the problem is you get back to your hotel and you start looking at your laptop or clips or whatever, and all that, lights in your face and all that information's playing in your brain. You're not decompressing. You're setting yourself up for a sleep failure. You literally need to, if anything, this is what you should do. If anything, what you should do is you wrap the day, you get something to eat if you need something to eat, you go right to bed, and you get up early the next day, and then you prep for the day.
Sure.
If you're truly organized. Because that way you've decompressed, you go to sleep, you get up, and then you get up a little extra early, and you have that quiet time, you're refreshed, you can see clearly, you review your day's work, you read your script, whatever it is, and then you attack the day and you repeat that cycle. And that's a much healthier way to do it, I think.
That's huge, man. I mean, and it flies in the face of anything you've ever seen about partying on set and stuff like that. Not necessarily on set, but there's lots of stories of different movies and shows, I guess, that have been made where, it's a little more raucous in the background. Wolf of Wall Street, I always wondered if that ended up being as crazy as it looks. You know what I mean?
It might have been. Yeah. Yeah. It might have been.
So how often does family play into this? I mean, do you have anybody that comes on set with you to kind of check things out, or is it always something that
Well, I've been doing this, pretty much full time since late '90s, and so the allure of it has kind of left my family.
Sure.
They'll come and say, they'll come and say hi. The novelty of working with famous people occasionally. It did excite my family for a while, and now, unless it's someone they really are excited about meeting, they're just like, it's just a person,
Sure.
They're famous, but they're kind of kooky or weird or whatever, So, but they usually come to set because they know a lot of the crew, and they'll come visit for a little bit and get a little taste, and then I won't see them for most of it,
Right.
Yeah,
that's gotta be cool though, to tell friends and family, like, hey, guess what my dad does,
Yeah, well, I just remember I had a friend who was working on High School Musical 3, and he was one of the actors on that, and he said, hey, your kids want to come to High School Musical 3, and I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll come by and say hi. And normally, at that time, because that was such a huge success, the High School Musical movies, I mean, anybody who was under the age of like 15 was like enamored with it.
Right. Hell, I've even seen it. Oh.
Yeah. I turned to my kids and I said, hey, you guys want to go to the High School Musical set? And normally kids would just they'd go crazy. It'd be like you just told them they're going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And my two kids who'd been on too many sets were like this. They were like, how long do we have to stay? And at that moment, I realized that I have these kids that are like, I'm so not interested in the film industry anymore.
Right.
But they did go. The second part of the story is funny, is we did go to the set, and they enjoyed it, and they went to craft service and whatever. And I was standing there with my youngest son. At the time, I think he was probably like, I don't know, 5. I can't remember. Maybe 6. He's probably 5. And he saw Corbin Bleu, and he's like, oh, hey, I know that guy. It's Corbin Bleu. And then he just walked away from us, and he just went over and started talking to Corbin Bleu. And we couldn't hear what they were saying, but here's a 5-year-old just walks up to Corbin Bleu. Corbin Bleu doesn't know who he is. And I can tell that my son is saying something to the effect of, hey, let's get some ice cream or whatever. They go over and get some ice cream. Then they sit down on a curb for like 15 minutes, eat ice cream, and visit.
That's huge,
and
man.
Then my son walks back over so calm as a 5-year-old. And he's like, yeah, he's pretty cool.
Right. Not even fangirl. Well, what's cool about that though is do you see them being interested at all for like, hey, maybe I want to act or direct or anything like that?
No. I think my kids are definitely artists. My 2 sons are definitely artists. One is into animation. He's really good at it. And the other one I think is really interested in graphic design.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think there's definitely opportunities to work with them and collaborate with them, because those are things that are certainly a part of filmmaking. But they're not that interested in like, hey, Dad, I want to come and, be a film director.
Sure.
That's not something that I think either of them aspire to do.
Wow. Well, they'll probably just call you, hey, Dad, I got this idea, but you need to direct it.
Yeah, exactly. So So, I'm happy for them, and I'm going to support them in what they want to do, because I think it's important that you do what you're passionate about. Because if you do what you're passionate about, then you're going to succeid at that.
Sure. And
that's the key.
Man, and you speak volumes to being passionate about filmmaking, man. And that's one of the reasons why I had to get you on, man. Because I'm writing you on Instagram, and I've got actual director, Hollywood director writing me back. And I was like, man, and then you told me you'd listen to some episodes, and, you're a real human, man. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. I mean, is there any current projects or something that you haven't released that you might be able to talk about? Anything coming up that we can look out for?
Well, a couple of things. Let's see. One is, I don't know here. Well, you can see me. I don't know if anyone else can see me, but you. This is a LaCie rugged hard drive,
right? Firewire.
And LaCie and Seagate and LaCie are partners. I think Seagate is the mother company. Sure. But anyway, I teamed up with these guys. These are awesome drives. I travel with them all the time. They're literally rugged, which is why I love them. Anyway, I'm part of their website called The Collective, where they have a bunch of different filmmakers and photographers who use their products, giving back to the community and giving instructional videos. So they're going to have some videos of mine that I created for them, talking about how to create director's reel, and how to create a shot list, and how to work with actors. And so they're going to be putting those up on the Collective website for LaCie. And in addition to that, we're actually going to have a contest, which I'll announce on my Instagram page here. I can't say exactly when, because we're still working out the details, but it's going to be a fun contest for filmmakers, and we're going to give away prizes up to $10,000.
Holy cow.
And this is going to be a contest that I'm going to design with them. That's going to be something that I'm going to judge with a couple other filmmaker friends of mine. And we're going to give away some good prizes, So that's coming up. So, people can go to my Instagram page, which is just Ryan Little _director.
Right, I was about to say
Ryan Little _director on Instagram. And I would say definitely within the month for sure we'll announce what that contest will be. And it'll be something fun. And I think if you're a filmmaker, it's worth, giving a try and entering. It'll be fun. I'm working, just developing some ideas, I'd love to do a World War II TV series. I've been given a couple other film scripts that I like, and we're just discussing if we can put some financing for them together. Taking a lot of meetings with other people that are passionate about a certain project, that they're putting their financing together. They would like me to potentially be involved as a director.
That's awesome.
And then just commercials, here and there, So I'm always busy. I'm always working. But I never really know for sure, what the next thing is, So as of right now, I can't say I'm announcing like I'm doing a movie about this certain topic,
sure,
and it starts shooting in a month. I don't have that lined up specifically, but I'm definitely always working on something.
Well, if I could throw something your way, it's an idea that my wife and I came up with. Archer, the TV show. Have you seen Archer?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it would be crazy cool to see a live action adaptation of, at least, even if it was a short, but I would love to see something like that. I mean, that guy the comedy and the humor, the wittiness of that TV show is just, that's one of those ones, like you said, the end of the day, you want something that's, it punches up, it's like very funny. It's a little dark, but it's, that's something I'd love to see, man. So there's an idea, if anything.
That's good.
And when you have this contest, I'm going to definitely put this out on Perch of Birds. We'll put it out on the website. We'll put it out on Instagram, and we're all over all the different audio mediums, iTunes, Spotify, all that. So we'll definitely we'll shout from the mountains, man.
Appreciate it. Well, it's been great to talk to you. I don't know if there's any more insight I can possibly give you today, but but hopefully what I've said has been helpful to someone.
Absolutely. No, and I really appreciate you coming on, man. And it's awesome to see somebody so passionate and so good at what you do. I can't wait to see what else you come up with, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Morgan.
All right, Ryan. Take it easy, brother.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.